Hi everyone, short intro. Basically, also Juan mentioned a bit that I'm working with 8-Bit. We are a recruitment agency in the game development industry, working with clients basically on different platforms, different game projects, but not only. I've been in HR and recruitment for like the past 8 years, but in game dev specifically for like at least 1.5 years now, specifically with 8-Bit. The past 3 years, I've been more focusing on talent sourcing and management. So yeah, recruitment, you can say that is one of my best specs. I wanted today's session because also Juan shared a lot of questions that you or people in the industry might have regarding this topic. So I wanted to have this session more as a discussion rather than like a presentation or me just talking about different topics. I think it's going to be way more useful and helpful, especially for people that are just entering the industry or that have no experience from previously in this industry. So I'm going to, of course, talk about some specific topics, let's say, that could enlighten you a bit regarding what is an external recruitment agency, what we do in the game dev industry, what is our role there, etc. What are some of the main challenges that we are facing, or what do we help on? And then, of course, based on the questions that you had, or based on other questions that you will have, we are going to have our own discussion. So yeah, as I mentioned, I work for a recruitment agency. You might have had sessions with other recruiters, usually internal recruiters from different studios. The difference is that as an external recruitment agency, we are hired from other, well, in our case, game dev studios in order to fill specific roles, let's say, that they have needs on, usually that either are more challenging for them or more time consuming, or have some specificities, let's say, requirements that are a bit more difficult to find in the market, or roles for, let's say, studios that are new in the industry and are willing to like also pave their way into this to this market. Well, to be honest, the most frequent roles that usually we are hired for, they vary on the specs, everything that you can imagine for, we are required to actually recruit for. But the level of seniority is usually what makes the difference, which means that from upper mid to senior, leads, principal, director, VP level, usually these are the roles that say that the help of a recruitment agency is more needed on. Because it's less frequent in the market, is less present in as company database or applications that they might receive, which makes them, in this case, use not just the help of their internal recruiters, but also of a recruitment agency. That's why I usually get also the questions, do you have roles open for like junior levels or graduates, freshly graduates? Of course, as a recruitment agency, we are hired and paid in order to fill those roles. So as junior levels or graduate levels are way more frequent in the market, it's easier for a studio actually to fulfill those roles themselves. But there are a lot of studios, especially like startups or one-person studios, that are actually willing to scale up and build a team of their own, that are using external agencies in order to recruit for those roles. So even in those cases, yes, it's possible that we have junior or entry-level roles, but it's of course it's way more it's way less frequent, let's say, in this case, rather than other type of roles. As I mentioned, there are a lot of specs, which means from engineering, art, animation, design, QA, production, everything that is actually available in the industry that we are actually sourcing for. Me personally, and also in our team, we try to, let's say, divide the specs that we are more proficient with, working with. Like, for example, I am working a bit more with engineering, tech roles, but I've got lots of hands-on also with art and animation roles and production roles. My colleagues, for example, might be more specialized in art and design roles, QA, community managers roles, etc. So yeah, depends on where you have, let's say, not the skills, but where do you have the most connections and where do you feel more proficient working with in order to source for them. As I mentioned, there are a lot of studios that are new in the market, even in the game dev industry itself, because more and more, as you know, new opportunities are lining up. You know, it's metaverse, Roblox, a lot of basically new available opportunities in the market that are making studios find in the industry when they are not actually in abundance. So yeah, these are some of the roles or some of, let's say, the main things why a recruitment agency is usually hired for from different game dev studios. And specifically here at 8-Bit, as I mentioned, as a team, we usually divide our tasks and we divide the roles that we might be working on in order to have a more proficient and lined up result for the studios. Another topic, let's say, that I find very important to discuss is also how to improve the CVs to make them more pleasant for the eyes of a recruiter. Or it was also part of your questions, what is important actually to see on a CV, or what is important not to see on a CV in order to like prioritize yourself. Well, put yourself in a recruiter's place, like when you would, let's say, review someone else's work, what would tire you and what would actually make you feel interested or intrigued from that person's background, let's say, and experience. Like when a CV passes 3 pages long, this is of course something that makes it a bit more difficult for a recruiter to keep their focus, let's say, and their concentration into actually reading all of the details, and especially when the CV is too stylized or animated, or it has like a mix of colors, patterns in it, and makes you like dive into it to read the important things that you are actually digging into. There are different sections, of course, on a CV that one might want to highlight and to actually emphasize. And there are different sections that you would actually have to prioritize. For example, what is the most important thing for a studio to see? It's the experience that one has on a specific project, field, or spec. If you have no experience from previously, because as I mentioned, you are either a junior or you are a fresh graduate or you have just entered the industry, then of course you have other things that you can line up, like projects that you've been doing, internships, courses that you have been taking, I don't know, other skills that you have gained during the way of entering the industry or trying to enter the industry. Basically everything that proves that the skills that you are claiming actually are justified from something, or that you are showing your motivation why you would like to enter the industry. Free it up, or try to free it up from things like that are not, let's say, like the main important things, like hobbies, side skills, others sections. So anything that is not, let's say, like the priority to see for a studio or a recruiter, because this is like the last thing that we are going to see, or that we are just going to see if we have enough time to. And usually every recruiter doesn't have. So yeah, what is the most important thing? It's of course the first work experience or projects that you have been working on, courses that you've been taking, or internships in this case, and then definitely also the education or other projects that have been helping you to build those skills. What is, let's say, important, or what are some of the things that usually might help when you are just entering the industry, or you are trying to find a job as a junior, as a fresh graduate in the game development industry? As I mentioned, there are nowadays a lot of courses, tutorials that could help you guys to actually scale up your skills. A lot of even professional, but also free ones that could sometimes even help to understand what is that you want to do in the industry. Because when you are just studying, it's sometimes a bit more difficult to understand if you are actually willing to do this thing, this specific thing, or this other thing. So it's never bad actually to try different things up until you actually see which is the one that you really want to do. Game dev is a very, I would say, niche industry, and it's pretty particular one. Most of the professionals actually enter the industry because they love games, that's for sure. So put yourself, in this case, in the place of the gamer. What is that you would love to build? What is that you would love to play? And that is also what, for sure, it's going to be something that you are also going to love to develop or to create or to work on. If you are more into, I don't know, for example, mobile games or casual games, or if you are more into console games, RPGs, action shooter games, every type of genre that could kind of make a difference, let's say, for you to catch on in order to try to find, let's say, the spec you would like to build, that is also what you can, let's say, direct into to start creating even your own projects. It's always, let's say, easy to say it, but not that easy to build it when we say that you should start making also private projects or side projects or freelancing work, because it is not always actually easy to do it, especially when meanwhile you are also having other occupations, I don't know, like school or a side job or anything. But if you want to like pave your way into the industry, a very important thing, of course, are also the projects that you'd like to work on. As I mentioned previously, there are a lot of courses that could actually help you scale up your skills, and usually those do offer even advices or examples of projects that you could actually start building that are going to make your way or your portfolio richer. Either if you are a developer or an artist or an animator, or if you are working on design, anyway, you are going to need a portfolio as big or small it can be. Nowadays, there are also a lot of market opportunities that are trending. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of even new industries that are lining up in game dev, I don't know, Roblox or new tools or new markets that you might find also very interesting to dig into, because not just the traditional ones or those ones that you have loved up to now are the ones that necessarily you will actually have to work into. You might find also very interesting some new industries or some new opportunities in the market that are trending that could actually also help to build these skills and to make the way easier into the industry. And something else that I always advise is also build your network. I don't know if every one of you here has LinkedIn of their own.
I think so.
I hope so, because it's one of the main social networks, professional social networks that is connecting job seekers and studios or professionals in order to offer more and more opportunities. Like us, at least, for example, as a studio, are using LinkedIn as the main tool to reach out to these job seekers and professionals in order to connect them with our clients and with the studios we're working with. And to build your network, it's actually always helpful to make you find more and more opportunities, not just in the market of job seeking, but also on, as I mentioned previously, scaling up your skills. You might find a lot of courses that someone actually could suggest, or you might find these new opportunities that are lining up in the market. You might find very interesting articles that speak about the industry or about different specs that you might find interesting to dig into. And definitely by building your network, once you are an active job seeker, so you are actively looking for a job, there are a lot of people nowadays that are going to be willing to help, not just recruiters, but also professionals that are the same as you, that could give a hand, let's say. So could either make their suggestions, or by sharing different opportunities, by commenting, let's say, even in companies that are looking for professionals, could help you to find that right opportunity. Of course, you are not going to find it right away. It doesn't mean that just by looking you are going to find that very precious opportunity that you were so much looking into up to now. But you are going to give a lot of interviews. You are going to have a lot of communications. Even the interviews sometimes do make you stronger in the market, because they make you understand what are, let's say, the main things that are needed currently from one or another studio. What is actually making you to make the difference, to be distinguished from other people in order to be acquired from a specific studio. So building up your network is always going to help, not just connecting with people in the industry that will help eventually find a job, but definitely will also help you to gain new knowledge about what is trending, what is important, what even sometimes is that you would prefer to do. Because up to a certain point, you might think that this is the thing that you really like to do, but once you see something that is way more interesting or way more appealing than that, you can even understand that this is actually what you have been willing to do up to now. And yeah, this would also be, of course, an advice that I will have. When it comes to gems regarding the industry, or let's say secret sauces, there is none. As I mentioned, game dev is of course a niche industry, so not a lot of studios compared to, for example, IT, software, or other companies are actually willing to do games, but it's certainly very, very interesting, challenging, and beautiful industry. So I'm pretty sure that the fact that you are here shows that you have that passion for the games and you really want to enter the industry. So by connecting to different people that are willing to help, recruiters, professionals in the industry, freelancers, etc., that are willing to give free advices or just a helpful hand to lend your feet to somewhere, are certainly those ones that are going to be, let's say, the stones to your castle. Now, as I mentioned, I think that the most important session of the discussion today is going to be the questions that you will have. Juan had already handled me some of the questions that you might have, but please do feel free to have your own questions so that I can also share my experience or expertise in anything that could be helpful for you. But yeah, I'm going to read some of those, and of course, you could you could come up, as I mentioned, with other additional questions that you might have depending on that. Okay, one of the questions was, should I always ask art coordinators for feedback if I know they have seen my portfolio? Of course, if you have a way to know that they have seen your portfolio, but yeah, usually every application is seen. It never goes unseen. If you know that basically these coordinators have seen your portfolio, it's always nice to actually reach out. You're not going to lose anything besides a free email. To actually reach out and ask for feedback, a kindly feedback, of course. How do you find my portfolio? Did you find something interesting on that? Would you have any free advice to give in case that portfolio wouldn't line up with the current needs that your studio has? So basically anything that is not intruding, but on the same time is going to provide some useful feedback for you to get to know more on how to help. Yep. Yeah, Juan.
I have a question that I didn't want to write it down because some people already asked it, and also I'm interested also into that. It's like, what happens when you try to ask for feedback after an interview, after, I don't know, they refuse you, whatever, and they don't answer you. It seems like they don't want to answer you. Like and sometimes it's like you cannot perceive, you cannot take that as a good sensation for yourself. It's like you usually think or try to think like they don't want to, give you attention for anything.
Interact.
Yeah, and they should, in my opinion, they should even to say, okay, this is not good in your profile, whatever. But at least, I don't know, say something in a professional way, like the same way like we ask them. But most of the times they don't say anything.
That's true. And it's also a bit of a difficult topic to approach to, because as there are different type of people and different characters, there are also different culture of studios that you find in the market. There are some studios actually that are really having great employer branding, and they are giving feedback to all the candidates, even if that feedback is negative. Sometimes the feedback might be detailed on what you can improve, let's say, in your skills or in your portfolio, CV or whatever. Or sometimes it can be just a feedback for you to know that you should be now digging into other opportunities. But the important thing is, and it's also a method that every studio should follow, according to me and according to us, the feedback is always needed. So even if it is negative and basically you are rejecting that candidate, at least they should know, so they should be digging into other opportunities. And is always way more appreciated when they actually give you detailed negative feedback rather than when they give you a positive feedback on passing on the second or next round of the interview, because you are going to gain something valuable from that. So you are going to improve yourself, but also you are going to be calm knowing that actually that opportunity wasn't for you and now you are going to be looking for something else. But as you mentioned, there are some studios that actually do not provide that feedback. Always, you can feel free to share either email or contact with the recruiter or the HR person that actually was in touch with you to ask for feedback, to kindly ask for feedback, but also considering the timing, which means if you had, I don't know, the interview today, there is not a silver line, let's say, when you should be asking for that feedback. But I think that 5 days to 1 week, it's enough for a studio to have the time to review a candidate's profile, and after having an interview to actually take a decision. Of course, there are lots of other factors actually that could make the process longer. And even in our concrete experience, there are lots of studios that do provide that feedback after more than a week. And usually that is when either the key members, for example, of the hiring team are missing for some reason, or they are going through milestones. There are actually some key people on the decision-making process that usually when they are pretty busy, let's say, with other tasks, they prioritize some of them by leaving behind the interviews processes. Of course, in this case, it's not the candidate's fault, it's the way they have organized their work. But this might be one of the reasons, let's say, or some of the reasons why the feedback might be missing or delaying. But it's never justified for the feedback never to come. So yeah, I always encourage to politely ask for that feedback. If it never comes anyway, it means that that wasn't the right studio culturally fit for you. So yeah, this is, let's say, one of the topics. Another question was, do video game companies take work experience outside gaming into account? Example, work experience as QA in tech companies. There are two examples of that. Like in your case, basically you have specifically asked that you have the experience as a QA, but not in the games industry, but in a tech company. In this case, yes, the experience is taken into consideration, especially when, for example, there is some matching or some overlapping with both of the industries. Like, I don't know, for example, even in the gaming market, there are specific studios that are not doing game projects, but either gamified projects or gaming platforms, which are actually very similar to other software companies, tech companies. And in this case, yeah, the role of a QA could, of course, be taken into consideration. But there are also like specific studios that are doing specific type of projects in the games market that would sometimes prioritize, let's say, the candidates that do have a similar experience into that, especially when they have a pool full of candidates to choose between, and they would prioritize some of them. I don't know if you have any additional thing into that, like if you want to like specify it, basically if you have that experience in a similar industry or it's like a totally different industry. If not, yeah, we can go with the next question.
I don't know if Martin did this question, but I don't know if he's here. He doesn't say anything. I suppose he's not here.
Yeah, of course, Martin, if he's here, he can always also come up. What do you pay most attention to when deciding on a candidate to start getting to know him or her? Well, as I mentioned, of course, there are like, even in this case, two different approaches. The approach of an external recruiter, as we randomly call it, or a agency recruiter, and the approach of an internal recruiter. Usually the internal recruiters know, let's say, the priorities or the specificities of the studio, approaching more into the soft skills side, while an agency recruiter is more paying attention into the hard skills side, which means what is the experience that you have, what are the projects you've been working on, the technologies of the software that you've been using, what are, let's say, the hard skills that you have basically gained into your background that could be suitable for the requirements of the studio. While on the other approach, how can you actually see the soft skills of someone just by looking at their CV? It is very difficult, but you might also see it on the way that they have introduced their CV, how rigid they are on presenting that, or how detailed they are. And of course, also if they have, for example, included also a cover letter or anything that makes the message to the job seeking more personal. I'm not encouraging to actually always send cover letters, because to be honest, in the industry, and not just in the industry, but even in recruitment itself, is being less and less needed nowadays with how market needs are going. But yeah, sometimes you might, through this cover letter, etc., show more of your interest. Another question was, is it necessary to put the photo on the resume? No, definitely not. It is not. I would say that actually pre-pandemics, when most of the studios were working on site, there were lots of companies that were also looking for the photo on the CV or paying attention to that. But the work being more and more remote, and the interactions being actually always through online meetings, not even having the camera on most of the time, why would you need to actually see the photo of that professional for as long as they could actually line up with the requirements of the job? Another question was, what is the most important thing when you see a CV? This is something that I already mentioned. So basically the section of the work experience or the specific projects that you have, or if you don't have any, the internships that you might have done, the courses that you have taken, I don't know, tutorials that you've been following, etc. So everything that shows, let's say, the interest that you specifically have to that industry, to that studio, whatever, let's say, aligns you to the common values. Is it good to have a creative design on your CV if you are a 3D artist? It is slightly a topic that I also touched earlier, which was the fact that a lot of artists and designers in this case stylize their CVs, either with personalized colors or with patterns. It's not very needed, because actually a recruiter or even a hiring manager, it's not going to distinguish, let's say, your art style through your CV rather than your portfolio. So all of your creative work, do showcase it in your portfolio and not on your CV. The CV, it's always best to be as clean, as simple, as short as possible, as long as, of course, it's showcasing also what you have to showcase. So what were the responsibilities that you've been having, or what are the experiences and the projects that you've been working at. So not really needed to make it stylish. When does a CV become hard to read? Yeah, it's what I said, that when it passes like 2 or 3 pages long, it always becomes a bit more difficult to be read, because it's going to take more time on the recruiter's job to actually go through it. So I'm going to go up and down through the CV to find the most important sections and to actually, let's say, highlight those ones that could be the most important for the studio to know. And when it's also with patterns with it, it really makes the job very, very difficult. Another question was, I would like to know how to enter the sector when you do not have experience in this labor sector, what steps I could follow to get my first job, or how to be a freelancer, and what skills and abilities. Well, this is a very open question. So I would have to direct some questions back in this case, because there are 2 different examples. You don't have experience in this industry or in this sector, but you do have experience in another industry that could even be similar. Or when you don't have experience at all and you are trying to enter the industry. So both cases, the path is different. And let's say the advices in this case would be different. I don't know which should be the case of the question. I could, of course, also detail both of the examples, and you could find your option in that case.
Go on, I would say.
Okay. All right. So when you are basically trying to enter the industry, but you already have experience in another one, even a similar one, let's take, for example, the case of an engineer. You have experience in, I don't know, software engineering, but now you are trying to enter game dev industry as a software engineer. Well, in this case, the most important thing for a studio to see would be the common technologies that you have with them. How would you dig into the technologies that they've been using? Well, by checking the projects that they have already published or the games that they have already out. In a lot of sources, you might also have, for example, the engine that they've been using, the software, etc. So there you can find, let's say, the common points with them. Or if you are an artist, or if you are a designer, but you've been working, I don't know, in the movie industry or in art and animation, not in the game dev industry. Well, in this case, what is the style that could actually make you suitable for that studio? And always, in this case, you'd be digging into their specific projects. So is your art style actually matching theirs on the projects, at least on the previous ones that they've been using? So how could you overlap in this? Do you think it's a good thing to apply for a job that has a really strong job description with a lot of requirements that you have not, or with the 2 or 3 years experience in something that you have just a few months? Okay, Marta. Okay, I'm going to go back to your question right away. Just I'm going to also detail a bit the other options. So on the question that was made before, how will you be entering the sector? If you are just a junior and you are trying to enter the industries, then in this case, the advices that I gave previously would enter into into interest. So you should be trying to go into courses, or probably even some internship jobs, or try to create your own freelance work, so you can showcase more and more to the studios that this is your motivation, why you are trying to enter that industry. And this includes also the freelancing job. I mean, the personal projects that you might be doing, or finding yourself on Fiverr or on Upwork, actually looking for people to collaborate in project-based collaborations. Now, getting back to your question, if the job description is really long, which is something I'm not a pioneer of, you should first of all see and check if all of these responsibilities that the job description has actually are logically lining with one another. Because sometimes it's like that meme that usually you find in social media, that they are looking for a junior with 3 years of experience. So yeah, if the job description is actually logical, even though it might be long, you can still, of course, apply for it, because they are maybe trying to be very, very transparent with the responsibilities that they are handing to that job description. If a 2 to 3 years of experience is required, but you have just a few months, I wouldn't discourage. I really don't want to discourage, but I don't want to keep the hopes high by saying that if this is one of the first or hard requirements for them to have 2 to 3 years of experience, which means that they are most probably looking for a mid professional in this case, as a junior, to still be applying for it. If you want to apply for that, make it justifiable, which means you don't have the specific years of experience, but you have your studies, you have the courses you've been working on, or you have these side projects or freelance projects that you've been working at that could kind of make up, let's say, for the missing years of experience that you don't have for that specific position. So I hope this answered somehow your question. Okay. Other questions? What do you look for in a concept art or visual development portfolio? Well, that is also very specified and very personalized depending on the studios. And yeah, just for curiosity, we were sourcing for a lead character artist just recently, and we were kind of facing some challenges with it. Well, it all depends basically on, as I mentioned previously, the art style of the studio and how proficient basically this character designer is in stylization, silhouettes, shapes, color theory, details, I don't know, visual hierarchy. If they have, if the studio has already some concepting art to show, because they should also provide you with let's say, some guidance. If they already have some projects lined up and it's the same art style that they are following for the upcoming ones, that if actually this is something that is lining up with you. Like, I don't know, for example, if they are looking more into sci-fi in their portfolio, or if they are looking more for creatures, or I don't know, animated characters, or more realistic style, etc. But that, of course, that depends a lot on what you are willing to do. So if you have your style to be animated, you are not going to change it just because a studio that you saw that has an open position is looking for a realistic art style. There are other studios out there that are going to actually look for other things. What else? Is the age of the candidate taken into account, and what can influence this aspect? Well, is it on, let's say, positive influence or a negative influence? Meaning, if, for example, you are meaning, I don't know, the age of a person to be influencing when they are looking for junior roles, no, not really. If you are looking for, yeah, even in the case of junior roles, like a studio wouldn't be expecting, I don't know, 40-plus-year-old to actually be a junior in not the industry, but specific profession or the specific spec, because you have already now lined up some of your priorities. If it comes to the limit of age to specific professions, I wouldn't say that there is, at least in our case, as long as I mentioned previously, what is the most important thing is the experience that you have in the industry, what you have invested for that. No, the age is not a limit. What factors determine? Yep, Miguel.
Sorry, thank you so much, Bernarda, for sharing with us all of this information. What is very very useful. I would like to ask you if, for example, I think probably you don't have a kind of ranking for studios, but I mean ranking as a satisfaction for people who are working there. But do you have, for example, a kind of like ideal place to work, this kind of ideal studio where people they don't want to leave, or maybe if you don't want to say that there is a kind of specific studio, but any country maybe that you have a good environment because you can jump from from some studio to other, for example, Poland or Canada or any other country?
Well, the industry is actually so very wide nowadays. There are some countries, for example, that have a game dev industry somehow, let's say, more developed than some other ones, of course. But I wouldn't say that you can probably prioritize the countries to which one has the better companies to work on rather than where do you want to live, considering all the other factors. If this was basically your question, because now more and more studios are working remotely, so I wouldn't say that the country really matters as long as you can provide your work and you can actually make up your tasks. But of course, there are, like, for example, some countries that have like a different cost of living, and definitely they are offering also different salary ranges in that particular case, and also very good projects, like for instance, Nordic, Scandinavian countries. But I wouldn't say that there are like divided by country on the opportunities that they would offer in the market. Every country has their own game dev industry. It might some countries might have it a bit more developed and some other ones a bit less. But yeah, every country could offer different opportunities when it comes to that. I don't know if that was specifically your question.
Yeah. More or less, it was like that because it's a kind of like to see or to know which place are like, to have a very good influence or very good environment to work with. So
Okay.
I think yes, that is right. But in terms, for example, if we want to work in some studio, which characteristics or which kind of questions we should ask to them about the condition to work? I mean, not just only salary, because of course salary is important, but any other characteristics or conditions in that studio that we should take in consideration?
Well, if you would enter into and dig into that topic, there are a lot of things that an employee should actually know pre-entering that studio. Like, how can you kind of investigate, let's say, regarding their culture, and how friendly, how employee friendly they actually are. There are the side benefits that they are offering, the opportunities to make your work easier. Like, for example, some of them do offer 100% remote work as an opportunity. Some other ones might offer a hybrid type of work, which is in some cases also preferred. You might also ask specific questions like what their turnover was recently, if they have had any round of layoff, because recently we are hearing so much about layoffs, which kind of also speaks about not just the financial situation, but how also, let's say, the business plans of that studio or that particular company were pre-layoff. You might also ask about what are the potential coming projects that they have after the one that you would potentially be working on. And this could also give you an insight on the stability that they would be having, because there are a lot of studios that are hiring employees for one particular project, and they don't have, let's say, on a long-term plan, what are going to be their next projects, which means that it might also be the case that you are going to work project-based, and unfortunately, after that might come a round of layoffs. So there are a lot of questions that you could do, let's say, to the studio accepting their offer or the collaboration with them, for you to be sure on the stability, because I think that stability is nowadays the primary focus of every employee. And then, of course, the challenging salary level and etc. So yeah, this could be some very useful questions that you could do to the studio itself before you actually take that decision. If they do offer the opportunity to also meet some of the team members, that would also be great, because you could also kind of get from them the vibe that exists in the studio and what type of culture they are actually offering. When you are in an interview, would you like to be asked by the artist that you are interviewing? Yeah, it is a bit related also to what I'm asking, because of course the artist should first of all know the project that they will be working on, and also not just the current one, but even the upcoming ones. Because put yourself in a place that the studio is now shifting focus of their projects. We even have some of our clients, for example, that are shifting from developing mobile games to developing PC console games in a totally different genre. That means that they are going to have totally different needs on their employees. Like if they up to now were developing 2D or 3D cartoony mobile games, and now they are going to develop RPG first-person shooter games, the art style is going to be totally different, which means that the artist or the artists themselves are not going to be needed on that studio anymore. So always asking about what the project and the art style is going to be like, it's going to create you, let's say, somehow a security on if your skills and actually your portfolio is going to be needed for them long term. I hope also I answered your question, Marta. What else? Well, there was also a question in the list of the questions that you had, or at least that Juan shared with me. How can you approach to asking the studios about their budget or their salary levels without being unrespectful? You're never really unrespectful when you are asking actually about the budget. Usually, for example, at least in our case, yeah. In our case, as an external recruitment agency, we always pre-sending the candidates to specific studios, we have the interviews ourselves. So we ask for their expectations. And once a recruiter, an HR person, a hiring manager is asking for your expectations, and you just are not feeling, let's say, secure about the range that you want to give, you can always reverse the question by asking or by saying that you are open to negotiating based on what is their budget. And in this case, they're going to have to, let's say, talk about their budget. There are some studios that are actually willing to be more open to negotiations, and there are some other ones that they do have a stiff budget, but they are just not, let's say, discussing it with the candidates, and rather they are expecting to see their expectations if they can gain something from that, which is totally a bad practice. But yeah, if you don't want to, like, in this case, show your range or express your range before actually knowing the budget, you can always revert the question by saying that I am open to negotiations, so what would be your budget in that case? And this is sometimes also a small fight that the candidate with the studio might have. What else an artist might ask? Well, if you want to, let's say, kind of know from pre-steps if you are going to be selected for the job, you can also ask about the priority tools or software that they are giving to the role. Like, for example, we have a client that is so much into using for the artist to have experience with Blender, that they wouldn't be qualifying a candidate if they don't have Blender knowledge. So they are willing to actually first chat with the candidate and everything, see what other tools they are using. But if they are not good with Blender, then eventually they are not going to prioritize them. So you could actually, let's say, gain time for yourself by making prior that question. So what are the tools that they are trying to, let's say, give priority into? What else? Yeah. What factors determine whether you take someone for a position or not? Well, as I mentioned, also there are some studios that do put more attention to hard skills usually, but soft skills, especially on an interview, are never underrated. You might be a very good professional, you might be someone that has a great experience, but if you are grumpy, not motivated, not self-independent enough, not proactive, then you are not going to, let's say, pave your way for that studio. And there are a lot of cases on the studios that we've been collaborating with that actually they have disqualified the candidate because of these soft skills. So yeah, the hard skills are of course always important, the experience, the projects, etc. But sometimes the soft skills gain even more points than that. I don't know if you have a reverse opinion to that. It has, yeah. Yeah. So if, for example, there is a specific tool that the studio is using, but you say that you are a fast learner, and this can also be proved. Like, for example, you can, let's say, show an example that you were working on a project that specifically required, let's say, a tool to work with in order to be developed. You didn't have that skill from before, but you fast learned it and you managed to deliver that project. Of course, it's worth mentioning it. But do not take, even in that case. So as I was saying, do not take it actually as a hard requirement that some studios are, as the example that I mentioned, it was just an example. Actually, it's not a standard when they are asking for specific tools to be working, because most of the studios are pretty flexible when it comes to that. So not necessarily looking just for having Blender in the tools that you've been using, because you might be using 3ds Max, or you might be very proficient with Maya or with ZBrush. You might be very proficient also with other new tools. So definitely, if you have skills in all of these tools and software, it means that you have learned them during a specific timeline. So that means that you could also learn that other tool. If there is like a very specific case that studio is not is really not willing to, let's say, go into negotiations besides the candidates that do have that knowledge, then it just means that it wasn't worth it. Yeah, there were also a few other questions that actually Juan had shared previously with me, and probably they were worth discussing for, but I would rather ask you in this case if any of you specifically has questions that you'd like to know about, besides just me developing those questions and giving you answers for. Let's make it more of a discussion.
I have two very specific, because I think it's going to be interesting for all of us in that sense. Mm-hmm. One is about Blender. In your opinion, do you consider Blender a standard in the industry?
This is also why I mentioned the example of that particular studio that we're working with that is so much into Blender. No, it's not really a standard in the industry. There are so many new other tools actually that could, I wouldn't say substitute, but that could make up for Blender. So if you don't have skills in Blender, you can of course have skills in other software, other tools, and you could make up for it. So it's not like a standard in the industry, but I can't say that it's not important. So if you have the time to invest on learning it, and you have also the opportunity to use it in your projects, yeah, do learn it.
Okay. Another question, also based on your experience and your opinion, personal opinion, a lot of people ask me about where do you find more demand? In 3D art, in 2D, in animation, whatever. So in your opinion, which is the field that is most demanded nowadays? Or because you are a professional recruiter, you work for 8-bit studios where you work in the recruitment field. So you should see, I mean, what are the companies asking more for those positions or not?
Yeah. I wouldn't even in this case standardize the industry and say what is, let's say, the most requirements in the market, but I would speak based on my experience. Most of the clients that we are actually working with are into 3D. We have, I don't know, because of coincidence or because of what we're offering, we have less clients that are actually working on 2D projects. As we do have also some clients that are doing mixed of projects. For example, they are working either in mobile or PC projects, and they are looking for mixed skills of, they are going to, okay, this candidate is going to work on 3D projects, but they should also have some previous experience shown into the art. So you might also find this kind of cases. So as I mentioned, I wouldn't say that this is like a market standard, but at least the requirements that we have for most of the clients are actually for 3D.
And sorry, instead of 3D, 3D prop, environment, or character design?
Oh, actually, especially if the studio is big, let's say, and they have quite a specialized team, I wouldn't say that any of this gets the priority. So if the studio is big enough to actually have the team separated by different specs, props, environment, characters, they have their same weight, let's say, or the same importance. If the team is small and there is sometimes required for someone, let's say, to do a mix of things, then you have them actually asking for generalists. So someone that is going to do props, but also environments on the same time, or someone that is going to do characters, but also have skills with props. So this also depends. If you want to like specialize yourself and you would prefer by patient to actually be working more with props or with environments, then that is up to you to choose. There are lots of studios out there that offer the opportunity to specialize your specs. So yeah, do not limit yourself because of the market industry. Make industry be, let's say, or come up to your needs and interests rather than you go after their needs and interests.
Thank you.
And Marta, okay, you had another question. So is it correct to ask about the people that are leading the project? What do you think about them or about the project team? So you mean to ask the lead of the project, what they think of the team, or? You mean to ask the team members what do they think about the lead? Oh, to ask me what as a recruiter I might think on the lead of the lead of a project. Well, if you are entering the recruitment process with a studio, they would never say bad words for their employees. That's for sure. Even if I have, for example, some personal experience with some specific leads of a certain project or a certain studio, me personally, I wouldn't be that unprofessional to actually display, let's say, those personal opinions about the leader of that team to the candidates, because you would be jeopardizing your work, and you would be jeopardizing probably even the process of that candidate, because my personal opinion might influence on your opinion, which not necessarily would be the same in the future. So I wouldn't say that this is, among all the questions that might be useful to you to know about a potential collaboration, this would be like the best one to know, or the most important one. And what do you think is the future of the industry, or what do you think is evolving into? Definitely, of course, there are, as I mentioned, more and more opportunities lining up. Like we have, for example, some new tools that Epic Games have unleashed, and besides, of course, the Unreal Engine, Fortnite Creative, and Fortnite Maps that actually monetize the games that they are doing, which is not so very well known, but is giving good money. As are also some other new platforms in the industry. But if you would want my personal opinion, of course, PC console games will never die their focus. And yeah, also like social platform games are going to find different ways, let's say, of evolving and actually having more and more opportunities. So as I mentioned previously, do not make your interests and your skills align to the industry trends, rather than shape what you love to do to the opportunities that the industries are offering. So if you love to make I don't know, cartoony mobile games and you love to play them, go into that. The industry is going to offer definitely opportunities. If you love to make PC console games, whatever the genre, go on and make them. So yeah. I don't know if I have basically answered all of your questions. Juan, you do have also my contact. If any of you would like to have even some personalized free advice, I'm open to that. So of course, you could always reach out based on any different topic that could be helpful to paving your path into the industry and kind of facilitate, let's say, the work that you are doing to dig into that.
I think it's done. I mean, people don't have
Great.
more questions at the moment. Maybe someone will reach you in LinkedIn and ask where, but I think
Definitely.
our time is done. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Happy to help. Happy to help. Thank you.
It was really great.
It
Awesome.
was great for me having the session to have a great day ahead. Well, evening ahead.
Have a great
everyone.
day. Also to you guys. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, and good luck in your plans and projects.
Thank you.